The evening light spilled across my small living room, painting everything in a soft amber glow as I tightened the last screw on an old wooden chair I'd been meaning to fix for weeks. I liked quiet tasks like that, the kind that settled my mind after long days that never seemed dramatic but somehow still weighed on me. I didn't expect a knock at the door that night, let alone the expression waiting for me when I opened it. She stood on my porch in a navy sweater and loose ponytail, fingers knotted together like she was bracing herself against a winter wind even though the air was warm. Maya wasn't usually flustered. She was the kind of neighbor who organized her pantry alphabetically and remembered to water her succulents even on gloomy weeks, the type who never knocked without purpose. But tonight she hovered on the threshold like she wasn't sure she should step inside. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my voice soft, the way people do when something feels fragile. She exhaled, the kind of breath that sounded like it had been held for a long time. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, and she entered slowly, eyes scanning the room like she was checking if she was allowed to fall apart in it. She sat on the edge of my couch, posture stiff, hands clasped as if anchored to something unseen. "My parents are visiting next week," she said quietly, eyes fixed on her fingers. I nodded, waiting. "And I told them," she swallowed. "I told them I had a boyfriend." She finally lifted her gaze, the worry in her eyes soft but unmistakably real. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't drag you into this." I panicked, and now they're coming to meet someone who doesn't exist. Her shoulders curled inward slightly, like the admission weighed more than she expected. I sat beside her but left a respectful inch or two of space. "You're not dragging me anywhere," I said. "Just, tell me what you need." She fiddled with a loose thread on her sleeve. "Would you pretend to be my boyfriend? Just for 3 days." She said it fast, as if getting the words out before doubt pulled them back. I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to understand the tremor in her voice, the way her knee bounced the tiniest bit. "Will they approve?" I asked. She blinked, surprised by the question, then let out the faintest laugh, short and breathy. "They're good people," she said. "But they worry. They always think I'm lonely even when I'm not." I nodded slowly, letting the quiet between us settle like dust in sunlight. There was something honest in her unease, something that made it impossible to treat this as a casual favor. "If it really helps you," I said, "I can do it." Her breath caught, and her shoulders finally eased in a way that made the room feel slightly warmer. "Thank you," she whispered. "Really?" We spent the next hour at my kitchen table, planning in soft voices, the kind that float easily in the quiet of an evening where two people are still strangers but becoming something slightly less distant. She told me her parents' names, how her mom loved warm conversations and her dad preferred watching before speaking. She described their habits, the kinds of questions they might ask, the stories she'd already told them about me. We sketched a simple timeline when we met, how long we'd been together, the things we supposedly liked doing on quiet weekends. She kept tucking her hair behind her ear whenever she got nervous, and every time she did, I found myself wanting to ask what she wasn't saying. But slow stories unfold the way the evening deepens, quietly, patiently, without rushing what should take its time. When she finally stood to leave, she lingered by the doorway, her fingers brushing the frame lightly as if grounding herself. I hope they approve," she said softly. I didn't know why it mattered so much to me, but I found myself stepping closer. "If they don't," I said, "that's on them. Not on you." She smiled then, small, almost shy, and for a second her shoulders uncurled completely. "Good night," she whispered, stepping out into the cool air. I watched her cross the walkway to her own porch, her silhouette soft in the glow of the street lamp, and something subtle shifted in me, an awareness I didn't fully name. After she disappeared inside, I closed my door but didn't turn off the lights right away. The room still held the echo of her worry, the quiet shape of her presence lingering like warmth left behind on a seat. I found myself imagining what 3 days with her would look like, not pretending to impress anyone, but just being near her. I shook the thought off, telling myself it didn't matter, that this was just helping a neighbor out of a bind. But something in me didn't believe it. I cleaned the kitchen to distract myself, rinsing the cups we'd used, wiping the faint ring her tea had left on the table. Every now and then I caught myself replaying her voice, the tremble when she'd asked, the softness when she thanked me. When I finally sat on the couch, the house felt different. Not changed, just holding a quiet anticipation I couldn't ignore. Outside, the night deepened, a breeze brushing against the window as if reminding me of how quickly life can shift without warning. I leaned back, letting the stillness thicken around me, and wondered, for reasons I refused to inspect too closely, what her parents might see in me, pretend or not. The thought lingered longer than it should have, weaving itself into the quiet of the room until it felt like a small truth I wasn't ready to say aloud. Still, when I finally turned off the lights and headed to bed, her smile followed me like an echo I could not ignore softly. The next morning started slow, the kind of quiet dawn where sunlight filters in gently, as if testing the air before committing to the day. I made coffee without thinking, my routine moving on its own while my mind drifted toward Maya's porch across the street. Her curtains were drawn, a faint glow behind them, and for a moment I wondered if she had slept at all or if the nerves she carried had followed her into the night the way her voice had followed me into mine. I found myself standing at my window longer than usual, the coffee cooling in my hands, waiting for a sign of her. When her door finally opened, she stepped outside in a soft gray hoodie, her hair pulled back loosely, the kind of effortless look that didn't hide how tired she seemed. She spotted me through the glass and lifted a hand, small and hesitant. I stepped out onto the porch almost without thinking, the gravel cool beneath my shoes, and crossed the street. "Rough night?" I asked as I approached. She gave a small laugh that didn't quite land. "My mind likes overthinking. It's a hobby at this point." "Mine too," I said. "We could start a club." That earned a real smile, faint but warm. She gestured to the porch steps, and we sat with a comfortable distance between us, steam drifting from her mug. "They're arriving tomorrow afternoon," she said. "I talked to them last night. They're excited. Too excited." I nudged her shoulder gently. "We're going to be okay." Her eyes softened at the word we. I felt the meaning settle between us, light but noticeable. We spent the morning ironing out details, favorite restaurants, small shared memories we needed to align, things we liked about each other in case her parents asked. She spoke with her hands, tracing little circles in the air when she got nervous. Every time she did, she seemed unaware of how endearing it looked. "I'm sorry this is so much," she said at one point, looking down at her knees. "It's not," I replied. "If it helps you, it's fine." She looked up then, something curious flickering in her expression, like she was trying to understand a kindness she wasn't used to. Around midday, we practiced the casual touches, nothing dramatic, just the small gestures couples did without thinking. She rested her hand lightly on my arm, then pulled it back too fast as if the warmth had startled her. "Sorry," she murmured. "It's okay," I said, gently offering my hand again. "We just have to make it feel natural." When her fingers slid into mine, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was soft, steady, like dipping into warm water. She held on longer than the exercise required, then released me with a shy breath. "That wasn't bad," she whispered. "No," I agreed. "Not bad at all." In the afternoon, we walked through her house to prepare for impressions. She moved books on her coffee table, rearranged pillows, wiped down the counters twice. I followed with small fixes, tightened a cabinet hinge, straightened a crooked picture frame, changed a bulb she couldn't reach. It felt strangely domestic, the kind of teamwork people slip into without planning. At one point she stood beside me as I adjusted the kitchen light, her shoulder brushing my arm. The contact was brief, barely a second, but something inside me paused, aware of how natural it felt. "You do a lot of things quietly," she said, watching me. "I guess I like helping," I answered. She held my gaze a moment too long before clearing her throat and stepping back. Later, we walked to the small grocery store down the street to pick up a few things for her parents' visit. The sky was turning a soft evening blue, the wind cool enough to lift the edge of her sweater. She walked with her hands in her pockets, and every so often we'd glance at each other and look away too quickly. "I keep thinking they're going to see through me," she said while examining apples. "They're not." "You sound so sure." "I am." Her eyes lingered on my face for a quiet second, as if she was studying the truth of my words. On the walk back, she slowed her steps, letting the wind carry the last of the day across our path. "Thank you for doing this," she said softly. Most people wouldn't. I'm not most people, I replied. She took a breath like she wanted to say something else but didn't. Instead, she walked a little closer, our shoulders occasionally grazing. Each touch was a tiny spark, subtle, fleeting, but enough to remind me how strange and natural this was becoming. When we reached her porch, she hesitated at the bottom step. I should get some sleep tonight, she said. They'll be here by noon. Get some rest, I replied. Tomorrow, we'll be fine. She went up one step, paused, then turned slightly. Good night, she said, her voice soft in a way that lingered longer than it should have. Good night, Maya. I walked back to my house slowly, feeling the quiet wrap around me again. The evening held a weight of anticipation, something delicate and unspoken stretching between our two homes. I sat by my window long after the lights in her house dimmed, wondering why it mattered so much to me that her parents approved of someone I was only pretending to be. But deep down, I already knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to name it. Before I could knock the next day, her door opened and she stepped out as if she'd been waiting for the sound of my footsteps. She wore a soft cream sweater, her hair loosely pinned back, and there was a nervous energy around her that felt almost familiar now. When her eyes met mine, something steadied in both of us, as if the quiet, unspoken trust we'd built over the last 2 days was already shaping the morning. She exhaled softly, then motioned for me to follow her inside where the faint smell of coffee and warm cinnamon lingered in the air, settling around us with a gentle comfort that made the house feel lived in and ready for company. Her parents arrived a little after noon. A dusty blue SUV pulled up slowly, its engine idling for a moment before the doors opened. I felt her shift beside me, the slightest tremor in her hand as she tightened her grip on the mug she was holding. I touched her elbow lightly, a wordless reminder that she didn't have to brace alone. She glanced up at me, eyes softening just a little. When her mom stepped out, wearing a bright scarf and an even brighter smile, Maya inhaled sharply, then let it out slowly as if reminding herself to breathe. Her mother hugged her tightly, speaking in warm, overlapping sentences, the kind that filled the small porch with instant familiarity. Her dad followed, slower, observant, his eyes taking in the house, the yard, the two of us standing close but not too close. When Maya introduced me, her mom immediately pulled me into a hug that smelled faintly of lavender and road trip snacks, while her dad shook my hand firmly, the kind of handshake that lingered half a second longer to measure something he wouldn't say aloud. Inside, the afternoon unfolded with gentle introductions and small, careful conversations. Her mom asked about my work while stirring sugar into her tea, nodding thoughtfully as I described my projects and routines. Her dad asked quieter questions, the type that tested intentions more than details, but there was no edge to him, just a steady curiosity. Maya sat beside me on the couch, her knee brushing mine occasionally, each small touch grounding her in ways she didn't try to hide. Whenever our eyes met, she offered the faintest smile, the kind that said thank you without words. We took them to the local cafe for lunch, the one with outdoor seating shaded by old trees that murmured in the wind. The sunlight filtering through the branches cast soft patterns across the table, and Maya relaxed a little, talking about the neighborhood, the bakery down the street, the small routines she'd built since moving here. Her parents listened with the quiet affection of people who loved her deeply and worried about her just as much. I found myself wanting to match that care, to make sure they saw something steady in me even if this whole thing had started as a fragile lie meant to ease their concerns. During a quiet moment, as her parents chatted with the waiter, Maya leaned closer. "They like you," she whispered, a hint of relief warming her voice. I let my shoulder rest lightly against hers. "I like them too." Her gaze lingered on me for a breath longer than it needed to, and something about the way she looked at me felt unfiltered, as if the lines between what we rehearsed and what we felt were beginning to soften in ways neither of us had planned. Back at her house, we spent the late afternoon in the living room, flipping through old photo albums her mom had brought. There were pictures of Maya as a kid, sitting in a cardboard fort, grinning with paint on her face, and one where she stood proudly next to a lopsided science project she'd apparently refused to let anyone help her with. Her mom recounted each memory with warmth, laughing softly as she nudged Maya's arm. Her dad added quieter details, the kind that only surfaces after years of paying attention. While they reminisced, I found myself watching Maya instead of the photographs. The way her eyes softened at certain memories. The way she rolled her sleeves up when she got nervous. The way she leaned ever so slightly toward me whenever the conversation shifted into unknown territory. Each gesture felt like another quiet thread weaving into something I didn't yet have a name for. As evening settled, we moved to the backyard where strings of small lights glowed softly in the growing dusk. Her dad grilled while her mom set the table, humming as she arranged plates and napkins. Maya brushed past me gently as she placed utensils, her hand lingering at the small of my back for half a second, hardly noticeable but enough to warm the air between us. Dinner was easy conversation, shared smiles, clinking glasses, and the kind of soft laughter that feels like a warm blanket on a cool night. Her parents told stories about road trips, old neighbors, and the first house they'd bought when Maya was little. She laughed along, leaning into the memories, leaning into the comfort of being surrounded by people who loved her, and leaning, every now and then, just a little closer to me. After dinner, her mom insisted on pictures. We stood under the string lights, the soft glow brushing against her hair. When her mom lifted the camera, Maya slipped her arm around my waist, her fingers curling gently into my shirt. I rested my hand on her back, slow and careful, feeling her exhale as she leaned into me with a familiarity that wasn't part of any plan. The shutter clicked, capturing something neither of us had rehearsed. Later, when her parents went inside to settle for the night, we stayed outside for a moment, the quiet settling around us like a soft echo. She hugged herself lightly against the evening air, and I stepped closer. "You did great today," she said, her voice low and warm in the dim light. "So did you," I replied. She smiled then, smaller than before but deeper, as if carrying something she hadn't planned on sharing. "I'm glad you're here," she whispered. "Me too," I said, and the words felt real in a way that surprised me. She looked down, then back up with a softness I didn't fully understand yet, her eyes searching mine with a quiet question she didn't voice. I didn't answer it either, not out loud. The night held it gently, saving it for later.